So you want to learn about tax delinquent properties for sale, which are sometimes called tax sales. Well, you have come to the right place, because today I'm going to teach you all about tax sales, what they are, what they aren't, what the opportunity is, and I'm going to show you a new opportunity, which is kind of the flip side of tax sales. So let's get right into it. So a tax sale happens when someone doesn't pay their real estate taxes. And if you don't pay your real estate taxes for between 3 and 4 years, then the county will sell your property at a tax sale. They're not messing around. They're not fooling around. They need that money. They want that money, and they're aggressive about collecting it. So when someone doesn't pay their taxes, that property will be put up for a public auction, and the highest bidder wins the property. And that person gets something called a tax deed to the property. Tax deed is, I guess, like any other deed in some ways. It transfers ownership to the successful bidder at the tax sale. That being said, it is a non-friendly sale, so tax sales do have problems, and you need to make sure that you're well apprised of what problems you can run into and how to minimize them and what to do if you do run into one. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But right now, I just want to get you grounded on what this thing is versus isn't. These sales are public. They're typically held either online, that's kind of the new trend, or they're also held at local county courthouses. And they're a lot of fun to go to. It's exciting to be there at an auction. And you can go there, and if you're the high bidder, you win the property. Typically, you're paying for the property in cash really quickly. Sometimes right at the moment of sale, sometimes just by the end of the day. But whatever it is, it's very quickly. So that also tells you something else. This is not the kind of thing where you can get a mortgage to buy the property. Mortgage companies don't fund tax sale purchases. Tax sale purchases are a little too hairy for them, and they're not a standardized process, and it's not something they do. So it is a game that you're going to play if you have cash to spend or a financial backer that's going to back you up. As long as you know what you're doing, it's fine. But you just understand you're not going to be getting a mortgage for this property. So that's number one. You need ready cash. Secondly, when you're thinking about going to a tax sale, make sure that you go to the website for whoever is listing the property for sale, typically the tax collector, but sometimes it's a separate agency within the county government that does the foreclosures. Anyway, check with them what their conditions of sale are, because oftentimes you have to register in advance of the sale. And if you don't register in advance, they won't let you bid. And sometimes you have to put a deposit up that they hold an escrow pending you buying a property. So make sure that you do that in advance. Don't wait till the last minute, because it doesn't work out that way. So anyway, you're able to bid with other people. The properties go cheaply, and cheap is relative. It depending on how competitive the area that you're in is. May go as cheap as 50 to 60 cents in the dollar. If it's an area that's not as desirable, it could go for 10 to 20 cents in the dollar. If it's a desirable area, you just should expect to pay more like 80% of retail value. Now, 80% could be great. It's 20% off of retail, which could add up to a lot of money, but it's still a lot of cash that you have to buy the property. So just keep that in mind as you get into this business. It is a cash-intensive business if you're doing the tax deeds. It's one of the reasons I like the tax overage business that I do, because it's not cash-intensive, and I make money at tax sale on properties I never bid on that other people pay for. So I'll talk about that shortly. But let's talk more about tax sales for now. So the way that you participate in this game is that you check with your local tax collector to see when the next tax sale is, and they will typically put out a list of properties that are going up for tax sale anywhere from 30 to 45 days in advance of the sale. And then once you get that list, you start evaluating the properties and deciding which ones you're interested in. And understand that you may have a list that could be thousands of properties. Larger cities, there are sometimes thousands of properties. One place I used to work in was Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Typically, we'd see about 3,500 properties listed for the September tax sale. And out of those, by the time the sale came around, they'd be selling 500 or 600 properties. So how does that happen? Why do you get a list of 3,500, but they only sell 600? Well, the answer is that a lot of people pay their taxes at the last minute, or they file a bankruptcy to push off the sale. So, just because something's listed doesn't mean it's going to be sold, which means that there's some strategies that you want to employ to minimize your wasted work. And the first strategy is when you get your list, just go through it and try to throw out properties you have no interest in. Probably because they're in an area that you're just not interested in. It's too far away, or it's too rough of a section. For whatever reason, not your area. Pick things within a smaller geographic area, and then start looking through the lists of properties and just, again, screen out the ones you don't want. And then about 4 or 5 days before the actual sale itself, pull the list again, and it's going to show you which properties are still listed for sale. These are the ones people haven't taken care of yet. That's going to shrink your list by like 80%. So instead of having, 3,500 properties to look at, maybe your whole pool is, 700 properties. And then from there, if you shrink it a little more and say, well, I'm interested in these zip codes or these cities, maybe you'll have 50 properties that you're interested in. And that's great. Then what we're going to do with those 50 properties is you're going to look on Google Street View or Google Maps, and you're going to look at the street to see if you're interested in. Look through all those and cross off the ones you're not interested in, and then drive by the properties that you're actually planning on bidding on. Now, maybe that you have a team approach to this. If you have too many properties, you may have one team, doing electronic due diligence and then saying, all right, we're going to see these properties. But whatever it is, make sure you can drive the properties before you go to that auction, because these properties are sometimes fire damaged, sometimes water damaged. They're not necessarily in good condition. So you do need to make sure that you put physical eyes on that property before you bid on it. And also, when you're going to be doing this game, make sure that you understand the legal ramifications of a tax sale. Some common things with tax sale are title problems, where a title company won't insure the purchase unless you get a quiet title action. Quiet title action costs $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So it's fine if you buy the property cheap enough, but just understand that you may not be able to refinance it or sell it until you get that quiet title action done. Often that's about 6 months, and again, between $3,000 and $5,000 to do. So that is another thing that you won't go. Also know there are no open houses or inspection reports in these properties. These are adverse sales. They have no way of letting you into the property before the sale. So you have to assess it as best you can from the street. Take a careful look at it. See if you see any signs of a fire or any other problems. And you also don't have any right to go in the property. So you can go up to the door and knock on it, see if anybody's there, see if it's occupied, maybe peek in a window next to the door to see what you can see, but you don't have any right to go inside that property. So just understand that that's why you want to pay cheap prices for these properties, because you don't get a lot of information about them. And you're not quite buying a pig in a poke, but maybe not that far off of it. So make sure that you're taking that into account and just assume the worst. Assume that if they couldn't afford to pay their taxes, they also weren't maintaining the property, which is usually true. So there could be holes in roofs, there could be all kinds of problems, and you just have to account for that and just understand that's the game that you're playing in tax sales. I like to do, because of those complications, I like to do the flip side of this business, which is the overages business. Overages is where, when the property is sold at tax sale, when it sells for more than the taxes, which is most of the time if it's an approved property, meaning it has a house on it, then that extra money is available for the former owner to claim. And their lists, like this list and like this list. And I'd ask the editor, just pop these up on the screen for a minute so someone can look at them. And you look at these lists, like if we're looking at this one, you can see the first one, there's $2,000 left over. The second one, $193,000 left over. The third one, $25,000 left over. The fourth one, $181,000 left over. Those are monies that are generated because the bidder at the tax sale paid a lot more than the taxes that were due. And that is very common. And that's where this money comes from. This list has $3.4 million worth of money sitting on it. And what I do in the overages business is we contact the folks that are owed that money, ask them if they would be interested in working with us to go recover the money that we found. We don't tell them where the money is. We tell them we found money held by a government agency, and for a contingent fee, we'll go and get it if they want to work with us. And then we recover the money and we get a contingent fee percentage. I'm an attorney, but you don't need to be an attorney to do this business. And it's a really great business because you're getting money for people that otherwise will never get this money. Statistically speaking, 72% of the time, the people don't ever get the money because they don't know about it. That's the basic problem. They have no idea this money exists. They think, oh, they sold my house, so they keep the money. Legally, that's not correct. Legally, what's correct is they sold my house. They get to take their cut off the top, meaning pay the taxes, penalties, and interest, and cost of sale. But after that, the money is up for grabs, and the former owner has the right to go grab that money. So they can and should get the money. So we get the lists of monies that are being held, like the one I just showed you, and then we put in a claim, and then we get checks. And today was a banner day, by the way. This is not a usual day in the Diamond office, but this was a great day. We got 3 checks in today. One for $22,480.29. another for $23,000, and another for $129,440.35. Pretty awesome, right? That was a banner day. It's about $180,000 worth of checks. So it's really fantastic. That's not the typical day, but it's a fantastic day. So when you sign these people up, they're happy to get money. These folks are down and out. They're kind of left to the curb. They've been kicked out of their house. They feel badly and they really need your help. So we help them and we get paid for it, which is great because it makes an ongoing business and they get the majority of it. Let's be clear. They get the majority of the money, but we get a nice percentage that helps us have a healthy, profitable business. I use it to support my family. My students that are doing this use it to support their families. And you can start this as a part-time business and grow it as big as you want. Right now, our internal database of leads is over $350 million. And it's over 14,000 leads that we could pursue with more tax sales happening every day. So there's no way to keep up with it all. So I do teach this business because, it gives an entrepreneur like yourself a chance to have a business where you can make some money and help some people. And also, I just want to see these people that are losing their houses get their money back. It's not right that they're losing everything. And do they have to pay us for work? Sure. That's the only way we have an ongoing business. But they get the majority of it. And we make a great living. They get their money. And the government doesn't get to just take this money, which is just wrong. So it's great business. If you want to know more about the Overages business, then you can go to my intro to the Overages business video. You can see a link up above for that or a link down below in the description. And the second thing, if you want to know more about tax deeds, I have a friend, Tony, that is just the master of tax deeds. And I sat down with him recently. We did about a 20-minute interview where I was talking about what he does. And he has a very innovative way of doing tax deed sales where you don't actually have to go to the auction. You can buy direct from the county and not have to compete with anybody, not have to run around, raising money to deposit that day. Really an amazing and very savvy operator. So if you want to watch that, just click on the link below for my interview with Tony and you can learn about this. I think he's got this dialed in the best of anybody. And when I sat down, I learned a lot of new things that I didn't know. And I've started doing tax sales in 1989. So it's been a long time for me doing those. Almost embarrassed to say it's that long, but it is. And you can really do well with that, with Tony's methods, as well as with overages. So click on one of the links and you'll learn more about overages, more about tax sales, and whatever you do, I wish you the greatest of success. So this is attorney and Harvard Business School mentor, Bob Diamond, over and out for now.